everyone, to this episode of Blasty Banter. My name is Peter Klein. Going to be looking at a few positive takeaways for the Calgary Flames and some reason to be excited coming up here over the next couple of games, but really over the next few months into next season. Let's get right into it and start talking about the Flames matchup tonight, as it is a Calgary Flames game day. They take on the San Jose Sharks this evening. Almost called them the Chicago Sharks, not a thing at all. Dustin Wolf getting the start tonight, and really, this is one of the only things to watch for this team the rest of the way. There are a couple individual performances, right? Excited to see if they keep up with Zary down the middle, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Excited to see just how some of the kids continue to play and all of those things. But I think the big one tonight is Dustin Wolf getting an opportunity in his hometown to really get this thing going again. And it's really, really cool to see. And it's like, for him, it's an exciting moment. He's talking about what it means and all of those sorts of things. But it's another chance for him to establish what he can do at this level and just establish that consistency. And also it's a chance to bounce back a little bit for him. He's coming off of back-to-back 4-goal games. Now, one of those was against 44 shots and one of them was against 18. But still, this is an opportunity for him to kind of bounce back. He has had a bit of a roller coaster this year, but now it is his time to come in and really make a statement that, look, I can play at this level. And let's be honest, it's a bit of a soft landing spot here against the San Jose Sharks. So I don't think tonight, if he comes up with a 26 save shutout, that you're going to say, oh yeah, no, lock this guy in as the number one starter next season. But this is just a chance to build up a little bit of that confidence. Again, establish a rhythm, establish some consistency for this player, and give him a nice, fun, feel-good moment in his home state and in his hometown. So I like this move from the Flames tonight. We've talked about it before. We want to see more Wolf than Markstrom the rest of the way, and so that this is an opportunity for that. Another thing we're watching for tonight is Connor Zary down the middle, and that leads us into what we saw on Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers. In Zary's return to the lineup, he gets scratched, and then they move him down the middle, where he plays with Huberdeau and Hunt. And according to Ryan Pike's article about it on Flames Nation, they outshoot the Oilers 10-5 with Connor Zary out on the ice. So a positive step with him going down the middle, and it's one game. It's against a good team, but it is just one game. And I have no problem with the Flames trying him down the middle. If he can do that while he's at center, he is just simply more valuable to this team, right? Like, you, especially in the Western Conference, man, you win games down the middle. And the Calgary Flames, for a bit, have had some struggles in those particular areas. At times they haven't. At times, it's been pretty dynamic down the middle. It's been a little all over the place. But if they can kind of reestablish what they have at center, and if Zary can be a part of that it just makes things more dynamic for this team and gives you a few more options. And this is the time to try this stuff out, right? Like, the games don't really matter at this point, or, well, from a standing standpoint, they don't matter. But you are playing against teams who it matters for, with the exception of tonight with San Jose. But this is real live game action and an opportunity to see what these kids have. It's like when Toronto, and I know Leafs Talk on a Flames podcast, but when Toronto went with Nylander down the middle in the preseason, it just gives Zary an opportunity to show what he can do, get comfortable in these situations, and maybe he doesn't play 82 games at center next season, but if you have some injuries next year, this is now a player who is at least comfortable with playing the position at the NHL level if you need him to fill in for a game or two. So at worst, it's just getting some reps in, and he'll be comfortable there if they absolutely need him. And at best, maybe he does get going. And maybe that this is a real solution. And now all of a sudden, going into next season, you have Sharangovich, Zary, Kadri, and Backlund down the middle. And you're feeling very good about where you're at from a center position. And that is how you start to then branch out from a Calgary Flames perspective. So I like this. I like this look. I think Ryan Huska continues to do a pretty good job with this team. He sits Zary down like, look, you're going to have to earn some of this stuff, right? And there some of the stat people that you see say there's some regression coming based on Zary's PDO. Not a ton, but at least some. I do think that going into next season, some of that could be offset with just regular development, although you could very much argue that this was best case scenario for Zary this season. But I think Huska with kind of an understanding like, look, you still have to earn your ice time and you still have to earn these spots. And kind of, I don't want to say waking the kid up or anything like that. I don't think he was sleepwalking through, but just a reminder like, look, you got to come out here and produce. I think Huska's done a great job with that. Someone who started the season as the team's fourth line center, Igor Sharangovich gets his 30th goal of the season in that last game against Edmonton. And there isn't a whole lot more we can say, right? He's an absolute weapon. He has stepped up in a big time way, and it is absolutely showing that he is a part of the Flames' next era. I know on throughout media here, there was talks of an extension for him, and I think they are completely warranted. Like, he feels like, again, I don't know if it's a core piece, but he feels like he is absolutely part of the future with the Calgary Flames. And like, if you can bring him in on a 3 or 4 year deal with him, then like that's great. I think even if you have to pay it a little bit more, you just want to see what they have and figure that out. And if you have to pay him more on the back end of it after, then you will absolutely take it because that means he's earned more on that back end. So I think going with an extension for Sharangovich when they can does make a whole lot of sense for this Flames team. He has a shot that a ton of teams would desire. He worked his way up the lineup and has pushed into some big spots here. But I do think that this is going to be a real a real boost to this Flames team. Again, the shot is a weapon. He has worked his way up the lineup and he has battled his way into being a very effective player. And he's made the power play look a little bit more effective. And that is the other real takeaway that you can take from that Oilers game is this power play is really starting to look dangerous. And if you're looking for positives to take into next season, Sharangovich is obviously one of them. But I do think this power play looking effective is one of those things you can take. It was abysmal 2 years ago. It's been pretty bad all season long. But the last little bit here, it has started to look a little bit more dangerous. And it has started to really get some life. And Sharangovich, I think, is obviously the star of that with the shot that he had. Shot that he has, sorry. But I think the real kind of tipping point for this has been Kuzmenko. His playmaking ability has been such a pleasant surprise out here in Calgary. And when you have him and Huberdeau out there, they can just create magic. And he sets it up with Sharangovich for a big goal to kind of get Calgary back into that game against Edmonton. And like he's so talented. He sees the ice so well. And also you have to pay attention to him because he's also got the finishing ability that almost got him to 40 goals a couple of seasons ago. So he has been, I think, a key part of this turnaround for the Flames power play and has allowed this power play to kind of look like what we thought it was going to look like when Savard took over coming into this season. Again, after an abysmal showing a couple of years ago, this is what you want it to look like. And if it's looking like this next season, it can be a bit of a difference maker for a Calgary team that, frustrating for some, is probably going to be trying to get back into the postseason next year. And the thing that I really like about it, the behind the net setup has been very strong. Sorry. It just gets me choked up thinking about it. But the behind the net setup has been really strong for this group. And like you can see defenses like the heads on a swivel with the goalie. The defense, it kind of drags everyone in a little bit. And so that creates the opportunity back at the blue line to like it opens things up a little bit more. And then guys have to, okay, well, no, now we have to back up and keep watching the point. So then that the box that they're in kind of extends, so it opens up the middle of the ice. I really do like how they have kind of set this thing up. Of course, the big thing for Calgary's power play this year was the zone entries, but once they get set up now, it really seems like they are going to be able to do some damage. And so when we look ahead to next year, I do think there are a lot of positives. And I know that there's a certain segment of the fan base that whenever you talk positively about the Calgary Flames, it's immediately met with frustration and all of these things. And I understand that. It has been extremely frustrating watching this Flames team be built and watching this team be mediocre basically for like my entire lifetime. And so I can understand the want to like really tear this thing down, but I do think that there are a few good things you can take. This team's probably going to get a good draft pick going into next season. And like maybe with some lottery luck, a really good one, right? But I do think Zari, while being a healthy scratch, is certainly part of something to get excited about. A lot of these kids have shown some real growth in this first year, and I think a lot of them will continue to develop going into year two. And I do think like things like this power play, a full year with Kuzmenko, are a few things that you can get really excited about. And organizationally, there's a little bit to be excited about as well, as Hanzik, Morin, and Lipinski are all making their way to the AHL. Their junior seasons have now come to an end as the first round of the junior playoffs have kind of wound down. The WHL playoffs look like they're going to be utterly insane down the stretch here. But the Giants are not a part of it. So Hanzik, obviously the bigger name that is coming in. And the Wranglers right now are so interesting from a Flame standpoint because, like we've talked before, that blue line is filled with guys who you'd like to see get an opportunity at the NHL level. One of them getting called up the other day in Solovyov, but that whole blue line just feels really strong. And now you bring in some of these kids, and look, who knows how much of an opportunity they're going to get. The Wranglers are heading into the playoffs. So, well, yeah, no, let's see what the 19-year-old has to offer. Let's just roll with it, right? So like that's generally not how you would assume it would play out. But if nothing else, it gives these kids a chance to be around professionals. See what the professionals do on a day in, day out basis. See what being around a pro level playoff actually feels like. So I just think it is a good learning, good growth opportunity, and a nice kind of easing in, even if they don't play a game, a nice easing in of things for these prospects. But all of a sudden, again, the high-end talent is missing, and the game changes are missing from this Flames organization. But all of a sudden, there's a bit of talent pushing up here on the main squad. And I've said before, I already think training camp next year is going to be incredibly fascinating. I think there are going to be a few legitimate training camp battles to see who is going to make this team next year. And I think that there is a little bit of pressure on some of these veterans to try to hold some of these players off. And I do think it'll make for some interesting decisions for Craig Conroy, because I believe that the mantra going into next season will probably be make the playoffs. And again, that is frustrating. I'm not saying that's what it should be. I don't think that's what it should be at all. But I do think that this is a Flames organization that just kind of thinks that way. So this is no reporting by me, by the way, which you guys can probably assume right now. But this is just my perception on how this organization has been for fucking ever, is that they kind of view it as playoffs or bust every year. But for Craig Conroy, who's probably going to have that mantra, I've talked before about my lack of desire to have Andrew Mangiapane on this team. Does someone pushing up on that spot make him a little bit more expendable? We'll see. Is there more pressure on some of those other guys? What do you do with guys like Hunt, Rooney, Greer when there are other younger players kind of pushing in? I just think that there's going to be a lot of fascinating battles. And yes, this Calgary Flames team still needs to get some game changers, but you feel a whole lot more optimistic about things now than you did basically exactly 1 year ago. All right, that's going to do it for the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Just a quick heads up. You can't see the shirt because I have awful posture when I'm doing these shows, but Game Over. We are back, baby. Game Over Network. Check that one out now on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to that. Game Over back for the postseason. Obviously, as the Calgary host, that is not necessarily a burden to my schedule, but I will be popping on some of the other streams throughout the playoffs, as that this has kind of, I'm not going to say it's come on suddenly because we've been talking about it for a bit, but this has certainly, it changes the schedule for some people, and some people just can't adjust to it because they have other things going on, which is absolutely okay. But it opens the door for folks like me to come in and fill in on some of the streams. And so I am, I'm very excited to see where this thing grows. So happy to be back with it, and we'll be back with Game Over Calgary full bore into next season. For the regular flagship Couch Potato Diary show coming up a little bit later on today, we look at the playoff races in the NHL that were adjusted last night, with big games from Vancouver and Toronto in wins over Vegas and Pittsburgh. The Blue Jays home opener actually goes pretty well as they beat the Seattle Mariners. Plus, major UFC storylines to watch outside from the two main event fights, and it was the Raw after WrestleMania, so I'll be covering all of that on the show. Make sure you like this video and subscribe if you're listening, or if you're watching, sorry, on YouTube. If you're listening, make sure you subscribe and leave a review. You can follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Primetime Klein. Thank you guys so much. Talk to you all later. I'm out.